Let's move to the United States now and New York City, where the police department has officially confirmed what has been clearly apparent for those following the news there. A sharp rise in anti-Semitic incidents in 2022 as compared to the previous year. Their annual report shows there were 263 hate crimes reported against the Jewish community. That's an average of one anti-Semitic incident every 33 hours, and that's compared with 196 incidents in 2021. Now, those incidents include violent assaults, verbal harassment, property damage to Jewish institutions and businesses, and anti-Semitic graffiti. Police are now investigating what may be the most recent example, a hit-and-run incident in Brooklyn's Crown Heights neighborhood, in which a vehicle drove into an Orthodox Jew crossing the street and then sped away. Well, for more, let's go to our senior U.S. correspondent, Mike Wagenheim. And Mike, of course, you've been reported over that past year on a lot of these incidents specifically, but of course now we're looking at the totality, that trend worrying and no sign of slowing down.
No sign of slowing down whatsoever. It is notable that anti-Semitic incidents, whether they be violent assaults, vandalism, rhetoric, what have you, are on the rise throughout the country. It's not just here in New York City, though obviously more pronounced and more visible due to the Jewish population here in New York. But also crime just, across the board is up in New York City as well, making for an even worse situation for the city's Jews here. Something that's gone unspoken and often uncomfortable to talk about. There was a recent study done by a group called Americans Against Anti-Semitism, which is based in New York City. It's led by a former New York State assemblyman, and they found that of 194 documented assaults against Jews from a period stretching from April of 2018 through August of this year, only twice out of those 194 assaults did anybody serve any prison time. Convictions were even rare, let alone prison time. And of those assaults, 92% of them were perpetrated by other minorities. We hear a lot of talk about white supremacists perpetrating these crimes, but it's apparent from watching the security footage, as I and others do almost every day here in New York, of another incident, that the focus is not on the right people right now. In addition to that, Calev, 94% against the 94% of those assaults against visible Jews.
Right. I'm just going to add, Mike, that of course in New York, the geography, the ethnic geography means you have those minority populations somewhat crowded on top of each other in Brooklyn neighborhoods, and that has led historically to a lot of friction, and that seems to have been intensified in recent years due to any number of factors we could go into.
There's no doubt about that, and there's no everybody who knows the city understands that. I think the problem, Calev, is that nobody wants to talk about that and instead try to shine a light on a problem that simply doesn't exist or exists in very small fragments here in the city. There's really no talk amongst community members from the Black and Jewish communities, the Hispanic and Jewish communities, trying to solve the issue, even to talk about the issue. If you're not willing to talk about the issue, if you're not willing to even acknowledge that the issue exists, it's simply not going to be solved. It's not putting the onus on any one group, Calev. It's a matter of just closing one's eyes and covering one's ears to the problem. Is obviously, by the statistics, is only perpetuating what is already a horrible situation here for the Jewish community in New York.
Right, and briefly, Mike, the police reporting on it, are we seeing more, better increased policing in those neighborhoods in Brooklyn, something the Jewish residents there have called for?
Yeah, we see it in spurts. We see it normally after an anti-Semitic incident or after a specific or even non-specific threat. Credit the police for at least going out on those occasions, but the police are limited as well, and it's not all their fault either in what they can do. They're limited in their resources. They put more now police officers in the subway system because of the rise in crime there, and part of the problem is that the laws have been changed here in New York in the last couple of years, not in the city, but in the state, where people commit crimes, they're right back out on the street the next day or the next hour.
All right, Mike Wagenheim, they're in New York City. Thank you for that, Mike.